Hello, I would like to introduce you to a matter that has garnered considerable attention recently. More specifically, AI-assisted pricing and how this could, in theory, undercut effective antitrust enforcement. I don't think the risk is real, but being mindful of this appears prudent. Regardless, you are likely to hear a lot about the matter, as notable cases have come up in the USA, and discussions have emerged in the EU. The fear is that AI will allow undertakings to coordinate or optimize prices in a manner that eliminates competition, but falls short of the reach of antitrust enforcement. However, history is rich in alarmist calls regarding new technologies. Frankenstein is an early example of this, and it even draws on an ancient Jewish legend. My favorite is the Terminator. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger did a compelling take on the matter. He is such a great actor. The latest concern appears to involve AI and whether this allows for anti-competitive pricing. This has gained particular traction since 2016, with several books, reports, and academic papers discussing the anti-competitive risks associated with AI pricing. Some of them are very insightful. I don't think the concerns are warranted. Regardless, vigilance is always prudent, and considering the most imminent dangers to competition from AI, this could stem from advanced pricing algorithms that induce collusion outside the scope of Article 101 or perfect price discrimination that eludes Article 102. We will begin by examining the issue of AI collusion and whether advanced pricing algorithms will enable undertakings to collude in a manner that falls short of Article 101. There are some merits to the concerns. In 2023 and 2024, actions were taken in the U.S. against landlords' use of algorithms to optimize the rent. Allegedly, the landlord shares sensitive information on occupation rates and rent levels through an algorithm that generates suggestions based on this data, usually to hike the rent as other landlords are levying higher levels. It's easy to understand why tenants are unhappy, and enforcers have taken an interest. And we don't even need to turn to the U.S. A Norwegian case illustrates the problem. To comply with good marketing regulations, Norwegian retailers had adopted a gentleman's agreement allowing them to conduct price inspections at each other's supermarkets. This was done to ensure that any statement claiming to have the lowest prices was factually accurate and thus legally correct. However, this also allowed them to survey price adjustments and, if relevant, counter them. No pricing algorithms were involved. However, the case highlights what is to come as these become more prominent. The case is currently pending appeals. To understand why AI warrants interest in antitrust, it is essential to grasp some fundamental concepts of cartels and collusion. You might not think it, but establishing a cartel can be complex and enforcing it even harder. Members of the cartels have an incentive to cheat, such as offering secret discounts. Even if that is not the case, ensuring compliance can still be challenging. This explains why most cartels tend to collapse on their own. The graph you see is from a real-life case, known as the lysine cartel. Regardless of having established a cartel and agreed on prices and quotas, the cartel collapses on several occasions, triggering at least 2 price wars. An enforcer will therefore be appointed to stabilize the cartel and serve as ringleader and enforcer. This then collects and consolidates confidential data that can be relied on to monitor compliance. Please don't take my word for it. Google it and check out the video of the secret meetings and how the members are unhappy about the failure to meet agreed quotas. On the left, you can see examples of videos from some of the meetings. Regardless of these and other steps, the illegal agreement collapsed several times, triggering price wars. And why do we know so much about the lysine cartel? FBI infiltrated it and eventually busted it. It has even been turned into a movie, and in my opinion, a very good one. It's a shame that Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't feature in it. To stabilize the cartel, an enforcer will be appointed, e.g., a trade organization that collects confidential data and monitors compliance. The secret meeting in the lysine cartel took place under the umbrella of a fictitious trade organization. This also explains why the Norwegian antitrust enforcers had concerns about the anti-competitive effects of the gentleman agreement in the Norwegian retail case. This begs the question, what role can AI play? AI can help not only reach an understanding, but also enforce it. None of this changes the fundamentals of the cartel and how humans have decided to substitute competition for cooperation. DG Comp, the principal antitrust enforcer in the EU, confirmed this in 2023, even translating it directly to the context of AI. As long as humans choose to collude rather than compete, antitrust laws are applicable. Detecting the cartel might become more challenging, but that is a separate concern. This raises two questions. Firstly, what can AI provide for when it comes to coordination? Secondly, can enforcers like DG Comp catch this? Or, as the saying goes, does their bite match their bark? Today, we will focus solely on the EU and its legal stance on AI collusion within the EU. We will not touch upon the position in the US and other significant jurisdictions. Returning to our earlier conclusions on the complexity of establishing and managing a cartel, we get Scenario A and Scenario B. But AI can do more than this. AI can share commercially sensitive information and thus establish a cartel. We can call this Scenario C. But relying on AI or doodle does not remove the human hand controlling the actions, and case law has already touched upon some of these. If we return to the statement from DG Comp, we can see how the agency is mindful of the risk presented by AI collusion. This suggests that antitrust appears well equipped to address scenarios A and B, where the parties have already expressed interest in entering a partnership. In doing this, DG Comp can rely on the notion of concerted practice, which covers understanding that legally fails to qualify as an agreement. We will not go into great detail on concerted practice. The European Court of Justice has explained how the concept is directed at collusion that doesn't qualify as an agreement, but allows the parties to act in coordination. The Court of Justice has even held that an undertaking can be held liable for the actions of an external service provider if it either directs these actions or is informed of their anti-competitive nature. DG Comp is, therefore, right when stating that firms involved in illegal pricing practices cannot avoid liability solely on the ground that algorithms determine their prices. This comports neatly with DG Comp's statement in 2023, suggesting not only that DG Comp are mindful of the risks, but also well-equipped to deal with it. That also means that in most situations, scenarios A, B, and C would also be well within the reach of antitrust enforcers in the EU. Returning to the US case about RealPage, this is a US case. We will not discuss US antitrust here. However, had this been a European case, antitrust would have been applicable. Anyone relying on the services provided by the algorithm should be expected to be included in the case and held liable as a cartel member. If we return to what AI can help with, we can also identify scenarios where very advanced AI allows for collusion to occur without any direct or indirect contact. The cartel does not rely on an interaction between two humans. We can call this scenario D. DG Comp has taken the position that even unilateral actions can be covered by Article 101. Article 101 would be available regardless of any interaction between two humans. I think this is an overreach, as case law does not support DG Comp's position. It's doubtful that Scenario D could or should be regulated in antitrust, not because it is not anti-competitive, but for legal reasons. First and foremost, unilateral behavior, even if suspiciously parallel, must fall short of what enforcers can intervene against in case you didn't know. There is a perfect correlation between Nicolas Cage's career and the number of people drowning in swimming pools, but hopefully you didn't even contemplate accepting a link. So, enforcers cannot just refer to suspicious parallel behavior. They must also establish contact and a meeting of minds. Secondly, the EU courts have been rather adamant in protecting the right to adapt to the prevailing market conditions, including competitors' decisions. This includes the right to stay informed about their plans and actions, provided this is done through direct or indirect contact. So, if done unilaterally, conscious parallelism remains outside the reach of enforcers. This also means that Scenario D, where the AI can make independent decisions, would fall short of the enforcer's reach. It is evident that DG Comp is mindful of the risk posed by AI and considers enforcement options. If you would like to know more, I can recommend this outstanding paper, which compares the positions in the US and EU. You will also find references to the various papers and rulings I have cited throughout this presentation. If we turn to the second concern regarding AI and algorithmic pricing, this involves scenarios where advanced pricing algorithms enable perfect price discrimination that falls outside the scope of Article 102. To understand why companies pursue perfect price discrimination, we need to recall that there is a negative correlation between demand and price. If the price increases, demand falls, and vice versa. This accounts for the downward sloping demand curve. As each customer has an individual reservation price, it would be ideal from a producer's perspective to target this and offer each customer individual prices targeting their maximum. Economist tends to be agnostic about price discrimination and perfect pricing, and it does not impact total welfare. Instead, it represents a shift in the balance between producer and consumer welfare. Offering the product or service at a discounted price to consumers who are unwilling to pay the full price might even increase total output and be socially desirable. This would be particularly true for products or services with significant front-loaded fixed costs, such as pharmaceutical products. This explains the agnostic position of most economists. It's not that they are ignorant of the shift in welfare distribution, nor the possible deadweight loss. However, on balance, it's difficult to render a consensus position on price discrimination as inherently evil. In contrast, lawyers would have intuitive reservations against discrimination, considering it unacceptable and unfair, and consumers would often agree. However, in practice, they also tend to take an agnostic position on the matter of perfect price discrimination, not because they don't see an issue, but as they consider perfect or personal pricing as unattainable. Unattainable, as companies cannot identify each consumer's willingness to pay unless relying on an auction to sell their products or services. Unable to engage in perfect price discrimination, companies rely on proxies, e.g., different forms of discounts, memberships, or happy hours. And consumers love it. One of these pictures is from a zombie film, and the others are from Black Friday. However, I'm not sure which is one. The proliferation of AI-supported pricing might change this, giving ground for discussions at e.g., the OECD. Personal pricing is not new. Amazon experimented with this back in 2000, but consumers reacted very negatively, making Amazon drop it. Consumers generally have a negative attitude towards discrimination, reacting against it, provided they can see it. While personalized pricing is technically possible in digital markets, many firms will refrain from employing such strategies due to concerns about consumer pushback and brand reputation. Personalized pricing is not to be confused with dynamic pricing, where prices are adjusted in real time to account for a surge in demand. Uber relies on dynamic pricing, where the price increases to reflect a sudden surge in demand for taxis. This might appear unfair, but the price incentivizes more drivers to make themselves available, thus representing a clear consumer advantage. Antitrust enforcers have therefore been unwilling to take action against Uber under antitrust regulation. DG CompP appears confident in its ability to react against price discrimination and personal pricing under Article 102. To examine this confidence and how it might be misplaced, we will briefly discuss how to treat discrimination under Article 102. I have a separate video on this. In a postal abuse case from 2004, DG CompP established that perfect personal pricing would be akin to exploitative abuse under Article 102A. In United Brands, it was held that a two-pronged test could be used to evaluate alleged exploitative pricing abuse. At the core of this, it had to be evaluated if there was a misalignment between the levied price and the value of the products or services expressed by their costs. Case law demonstrates considerable inconsistency in applying United Brands, making it challenging to rely on it in practice. More troublesome with respect to DG Comp position and the matter of personal pricing is how United Brand has opened a window for considering non-cost factors when evaluating the value of a product or service. This was further developed in subsequent cases and was clearly outlined in the Scandlines case. Here, DG Comp had to evaluate whether the price for port access services was excessive. In this, non-economic factors on the buyer side, such as convenient locations close to roads and short sailing distance, were included. None of these cases dealt directly with exploitative or perfect price discrimination, but they do muddy DG Comp's confident position. Interestingly, DG CompP appears to be actually aware of the inconsistency between case law and its confident position in several submissions. In a recent amicus brief, DG CompP appears very interested in managing the damage, suggesting that too much has been read into the Scandlines case. I think much could be achieved if DG Comp delivered on its 2005 promise to provide a separate paper on discriminatory and exploitative abuse. Unfortunately, I find this very unlikely. So, in conclusion, algorithmic price discrimination, enabled by AI and big data, has raised significant concerns about its potential impact on consumer welfare. AI will potentially allow companies to personalize prices for each consumer, maximizing producer welfare at the expense of consumers. The legal position is unclear, and in my opinion, DG Comp's confidence is misplaced without making it entirely mute. Consumers might represent a bigger restraint than Article 102. Again, I have an excellent paper I can recommend for further reading. It's available on SSRN. Here you will also find the cases and resources I have relied upon in preparing this presentation. And feel free to reach out. This is my email.